everybody. Uh-huh. Got some more people coming in. Sure. Thank you. Okay, welcome everybody. We have a sizable storm brewing here, I know, coming in, so I hope we survive the night. I'm sure we will, but it's always a bit intimidating to see the clouds I saw roiling over us as I drove over here tonight. Welcome again. We're going to continue now with our study of Daniel, but beforehand, I'd like for us to join together again in prayer. And we had people we were praying for last week, and I'd like to be reminded who they are, plus our congregation. We're going to grow. And the way we do that is, this one's not. There it is, finally. I knew it wasn't quite right. It was on one ear, but not the other. Needed to span the space between. But anyway, I'm glad you're here. And we're going to be planning some evangelism and things for the future. Pastor Camps and I have been talking, sharing, looking at the possibilities that we have for our community. And I'll be coming Monday, if I don't forget, this Monday. Send me a text to remind me, come and see what you're doing with the food share program. It's at 12:30 in the afternoon, afternoon, whatever time that is, Monday. So, special people in need, prayer people we're waiting for, praying for. Denise, I remember Denise. Denise, glad to see you again. So glad you're here. Okay. Your wife, okay. I could barely see you over the rail there. If it weren't for your hand waving, I wouldn't have noticed you were there at all. Glad you're here. Did you get your notes for tonight?
No, I did not, sir. And I need the notes from last Tuesday. I was not here Tuesday.
Okay. Did you get a notebook?
Yeah, I have the binder.
Okay. So we have the notes for tonight. I'll have to print some more for your missing batch and bring them next time.
Yes,
All right, let's divide up in groups of 2 or 3. Pray for Denise. Pray for his wife. Pray for Royan and David. Okay. And again, pray for our growth in this community. What do you call a plant that stops growing?
Stagnant.
Dead.
It might still stop growing, it'd still be green.
Oh, yeah.
If he turns brown, he's dead.
Okay. What do you call a fruit tree that no longer bears fruit?
Not useful.
Yeah. Well, we're talking about our congregation now. We need to grow. And that comes through life, through dedication, through exploration, and study, and prayer. Far be it from me to leave that best part out. I'm going to be sharing with you a project this next Sabbath which is that we start making a list of all the business people, neighbors that we work with, meet on a regular basis. We're going to make a list of them and make them a regular weekly part of prayer and see what the Lord does. But now let's pray for Denise and his wife and Royan and David.
And for Harding Correctional, 3 names requested by Hector Pereira and Damon Williams, Clarence Johnson.
Okay, and
Maria.
Maria.
She's a newly baptized member. She's sick.
Okay,
She was in church Sabbath, but
Maybe
she's
Virginia too?
Virginia. All right then.
Pastor,
Excuse me.
I would like for you to pray for myself.
Okay, self, we got you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know, Andrew. Okay, 2 or 3, and I'll join you. Let's take a few moments and pray for each other, with each other, and then we'll begin our study. Testing. Okay, I'm back. Any questions left over from last Tuesday night? Then tonight, we get into the beginning of Daniel's career. Last week, we looked at recipes. Do you remember the blood-soaked recipe we saw? Yeah. I shudder to think of it. Trouble is, we have blood sausage you can buy over here in Publix today. Obviously, it's not kosher. So you have to stay with pastrami, which is kosher, usually. But now we're going to get into the beginning of his career. Let's read together the chapter 2, shall we? And I'll pause here and there as we go. In the 2nd year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar had dreams. His spirit was troubled and his sleep left him. 2nd year. What do you know about this year? Is it a 2nd year or a 3rd year? How do you know? Because Nebuchadnezzar has year 0. How long was Daniel's education supposed to be? 3 years. But here we are in Nebuchadnezzar's 2nd year. And Daniel is now working in the king's court. What does that tell you? He finished. He's graduated. That's a little subtlety behind the passage. He is now an official graduate of King Nebu's University and now working in the king's court. And it's his 3rd year. So 605 was the year that Daniel was taken as a hostage. 604, he's in school. 603, he's in school. And finally you get to the beginning of 602, and we see Daniel in the king's court. So notice what the king did. Then the king demanded that the magicians, the enchanters, the sorcerers, and the Chaldeans, notice it's not Chaldeans, it's Chaldeans. There is no CH sound in any of the Semitic languages. That CH represents a guttural. It's like the CH in the word chemistry or the CH in the word Loch, or in German, Ach du Liebe. Just a little linguistic thing there to correct your false pronunciations. So he called them in, and they came and stood before the king. And the king said to them, I had a dream, and my spirit is troubled to know the dream. Then the Chaldeans said to the king in Aramaic, and this is important, at this moment, the language of the book of Daniel changes. Up to this moment, in Daniel 1, in Daniel 2, the first half of verse 4, it's in Hebrew. But now it shifts. And they said to the king in Aramaic, which was the official court language of Babylon and Persia. What does that tell you? It's a little tidbit. Does it seem trivial? Let me remind you that nothing in Scripture is trivial. You got the 10% that shows, and you got the 90% of the iceberg that's underneath that is a part of the whole picture. Why would it be important? What brand of Aramaic would this be? We're in Florida. How many of you speak Southern? For sure. Yeah. And I'm obviously a Yankee. My whole linguistic patois is very Yankee. Actually, I speak American Standard. It's called. It's what's used in radio and television. All of the people that are announcers and DJs and so on, they speak American Standard. And when you hear a Southerner speak on TV, you catch it immediately, right? But it's deeper than that. What's the relationship between Portuguese and Spanish? Anybody speak Portuguese? Portuguese? Well, Portuguese and Spanish, Espanol, are from the same roots as French and Latin and Romanian. Romanian is the modern version of Old Latin, just so you know. So when you hear a person speaking Spanish, do you recognize it? When I was doing concert tours in Latin America, when we got to Brazil, we're singing in Portuguese now. The Portuguese used to brag to us about how they could understand Spanish, but the Spanish-speaking people couldn't understand them. But muito bem, molto bene. I just spoke to you in 2 languages. Muito bem is Portuguese. Molto bene is Italian. Très bien is French. Está bien? I'm back to Spanish again. Mabuhay. Filipino. Yeah, Tagalog. Yeah. So you notice these differences. The Spanish, Portuguese, French, Italian, Romanian all come from the same roots called Indo-European. There's a lot of Greek in there as well, and Latin. But the Semitic languages all come from Shem, the eldest son of Noah. And they're called Semitic languages because they're named after Shem. And so you have Hebrew, which is a Semitic language. You have Aramaic, which is Semitic. You have Akkadian, which is Semitic. You have Syriac, and so it goes. Those are all Semitic languages, and they have certain characteristics. Every word in those languages has a 3-letter root. Just 3 letters. But you can add prefixes and suffixes to those 3 letters, and you shift the meaning. And you can change the vowels. Ahav, he loved. Ohev, loving. Same 3 roots inside of it. It's an aleph, he, and vet, a B, A-H-B. Ahav, that's past tense, third person singular. And you have ohev, which is, if I say to my wife, ani ohevlech, I'm saying to her, I love you, and it's present continuous. But I changed the vowels slightly, and I put my I, ani, in front of it. But now in Aramaic, it's different. You got the 3 letters, but they change the vowels. And in Hebrew, you take the definite article, ha, and you put it in front of a word. And that gives you a definite article, the whatever follows. But in Aramaic, they put their definite article at the end of the word. But it's still Semitic. Now, we have various brands of Aramaic. We have Aramaic that is spoken today, modern Aramaic. And we have Aramaic that was spoken by the rabbis in the 1st century. It's not the same. We have Aramaic that was spoken by the exiled Jews who fled Babylon, who fled Nebuchadnezzar and settled in Elephantine. It's an island in the Nile River. There's a big Jewish congregation, populace to this day, located on the island of Elephantine. And then you have the Aramaic of the Persian court, the Babylonian court. And guess what? Which brand of Aramaic do we find in the book of Daniel? Persian court. So what does that tell you about Daniel? He was in the court. He wasn't writing in the 2nd century. We have all kinds of Aramaic writings from the 2nd century BC. No. We have the Dead Sea Scrolls. A lot of them are written in Aramaic, and they're not Persian. They're not the original fancy language of the Persian court. So what we're looking at here, that little bit of tidbit, is another evidence that we're dealing with living people, dealing with a contemporary situation at the time, not centuries later. Which is very important in how we understand Daniel. Many modern scholars consider Daniel to be a novel. And they even go so far as to say that the prophecies in Daniel aren't prophecies at all. They're history written as though they were prophecy. They were written after the fact, as in 2nd century. And so they take history, they believe Daniel, the author of Daniel, not the real Daniel, took events and turned them into something that sounds like prophecy. But if Daniel's Aramaic is from Persia and not from the 2nd century, that kind of blows a hole in that battleship. So you see how important that little tidbit is. The Aramaic that Daniel spoke from chapter 2, verse 4, all the way to the end of chapter 7, is the language of the Persian court.
It shows the fallacy of the critics.
Yes,
It's a beautiful way to show
I
the
know,
fallacy.
and very subtle. But when you tell a critic, it's not so subtle. Yeah, okay. Let's go on. There's something coming up here that I just have to laugh at. And I want you to join me in the joke. And I think Daniel had fun writing this. There's humor here. You ready for it? You're dying to know, right? Here we go. The king answered and said to the Chaldeans, "The word from me is firm. If you do not make known to me the dream and its interpretation, you shall be torn limb from limb, and your houses shall be laid in ruins. And if you show the dream and the interpretation, you shall receive from me gifts and rewards and great honor. Therefore, show me the dream and its interpretation." The humor is coming up. They answered a second time and said, "Let the king tell his servants the dream, and we will show its interpretation." But the king had a problem here, didn't he? He couldn't remember the dumb dream. Now here's the joke, and I think Daniel got a kick out of this. Nebuchadnezzar's name, Nabuchodonosor in Akkadian, Nebuchadnezzar in Hebrew. His name means Nabu, guard my border. Who is Nabu? Nabu was the Babylonian god of prophecy. Nebuchadnezzar is named after the Babylonian god of prophecy. And King Nebi is so, I'm going to shorten his name, King Nebi was so unable to live up to his name that he couldn't even remember the dream. There's the joke. Daniel got a kick out of writing that, I think. King Nebi, named after the god of prophecy, can't even remember his own dream, much less interpret it. You're not chuckling. Oh, you are. But that's kind of fun, isn't it? Yeah. It's one of those little subtleties in the book of Daniel. So, King Nebi goes on a rampage. I know with certainty that you are trying to gain time because you see that the word from me is firm. If you do not make the dream known to me, it is my magnetic personality. I see it now. If I not make known to me the dream, there is but one sentence for you. You have agreed to speak lying and corrupt words before me till the times change. Therefore, tell me the dream, and I shall know that you can show me its interpretation. And they answered again, there is not a man on earth who can meet the king's demand, for no great and powerful king has asked such a thing of any magician or enchanter or Chaldean. The thing the king asks is difficult, and no one can show it to the king except the gods, whose dwelling is not with flesh. Because of this, the king was angry and very furious, and commanded that all the wise men of Babylon be destroyed. So the decree went out, and the wise men were about to be killed. And they sought Daniel and his companions to kill them. This tells you something else about their position in the court. What did King Nebi expect from them? Do you see here that Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were considered by King Nebi to be of the same class as the magicians, astrologers, soothsayers, Chaldeans? What does that tell you?
He was ignorant.
Yes, he was. He was an ignorant boob. Dude. Duh. But their position in the court, they are about to be killed with all the rest of those psychics. Because Nebuchadnezzar considered the training they had gotten, and I'm going to show you some of that training in a few moments, that they had gotten, made them, theoretically at least, to have the ability of all of those other guys. Believe it or not, King Nebi's university trained people to be magicians and diviners and astrologers. And just so you know, their astronomy was so good. We have tablets with star maps that accurately pinpoint all the various stars, and they have records of the shifts of the planet Venus, which are accurate. They could follow the planets. They could actually predict eclipses. They knew this so well, they could predict them. And they made use of them when need be, because most of the average populace, when it got dark, oh no, it's the end of the world, and the king would step in and rescue them as the eclipse faded. So it became a power trip to know all of these things. But the astrologers would look at the positions of the stars and the dates and everything else. They did the equivalent of examining tea leaves. I'll explain that further in a moment. Stir the cup. Oh, those two flakes. Danger, doom, etc.
Can we go back one paragraph?
Yes.
Did Daniel stop using his native language
his education, or because who he expected to be reading this?
Yes.
Okay. I wasn't clear on that.
Everything there is for a purpose.
Right.
Not mere coincidence. And I believe God had his hand in it, in the preservation of it. It would have been so easy as time went by to convert the Aramaic into Hebrew, which means we would have lost that piece of evidence. So it was purposeful. Okay, Daniel. There it is. Daniel replied with prudence. He was a wise boy. And discretion to Arioch. It's not Ariach, it's Arioch, the captain of the king's guard, who had gone out to kill the wise men of Babylon. He declared to Arioch, the king's captain, "Why is the decree of the king so urgent?" Then Arioch made the matter known to Daniel. And Daniel went in and requested the king to appoint him a time that he might show the interpretation to the king. So Daniel's buying for time. Then Daniel went to his house and made the matter known to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, his companions, and told them to seek mercy from God, the God of heaven, concerning this mystery, so that Daniel and his companions might not be destroyed with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. Then the mystery was revealed to Daniel in a vision of the night. Then Daniel blessed the God of heaven. Daniel spake and said. Now, looking at the structure here, what do you see? It's no longer in paragraph form, right? It's because what Daniel wrote here is a piece of poetry. This is great literature. And he's using a standard Hebrew form of poetry. You have a line and then a parallel line that reinforces the first line or adds more information to it. Then you make another line and add another parallel. And you can do it where it adds to or it can be contrastive. You can have a line and another one that contradicts it for some reason. And you see that in the book of Psalms throughout. It's Hebrew poetry. Daniel wrote a poem. Chiastic structures, we see those all over the place too, where you have a line, then a second line, then a climax line, then you repeat the second line in another form, and you repeat the first line. It makes an arrow.
So this one is not chiastic.
This is not chiastic. Good observation. But there are chiasms in Daniel, just so you know. So, reading on. Blessed be the name of God forever and ever, to whom belong wisdom and might. He changes times and seasons. He removes kings and sets up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. He reveals deep and hidden things. He knows what is in the darkness, and the light dwells with him. To you, O God of my fathers, I give thanks and praise, for you have given me wisdom and might, and have now made known to me what I asked of you. For you have made known to us the king's matter. Therefore, Daniel went into Arioch, whom the king had appointed to destroy the wise men of Babylon. He went and said thus to him, "Do not destroy the wise men of Babylon. Bring me in before the king, and I will show the king the interpretation." What's happening here?
Hebrew children were saving the lives of all of
All of those psychics are going to survive now. We have a word for that in Christianity. peace. Isn't that incredible? Daniel could have said, well, you do well to get rid of those charlatans, Nebi. They're soaking up your finances and food. And this is the best they can do for you, so go toss them into your brick kilns. By the way, that's the fiery furnace. Nebuchadnezzar had huge brick kilns on the plain of Dura. But getting ahead of the story here. Here we go, some more. Let's go to verse 27. Daniel answered the king and said, no wise men, enchanters, magicians, or astrologers can show to the king the mystery that the king has asked. But there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries, and he has made known to King Nebuchadnezzar what will be in the latter days. Your dream and the visions of your head as you lay in your bed are these. To you, O king, as you lay in bed came thoughts of what would be after this. And he who reveals mysteries made known to you what is to be. But as for me, this mystery has been revealed to me, not because of any wisdom that I have, more than all the living, but in order that the interpretation may be made known to the king, and that you may know the thoughts of your mind. What do you see there? What? Humility. Daniel says, guess what I can do? Whoopie-doo. No, it's not because I'm so great. It's because God is. All the glory, soli Deo gloria, all the glory went to God. What impact do you think that might have had on King Nebi? You'll find out in a moment. Because King Nebi wrote a poem. So now, O king, behold a great image. This image, mighty and of exceeding brightness, stood before you, and its appearance was frightening. Then he describes it. The head of this image was of fine gold, its chest and arms of silver, its middle and thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, its feet partly of iron and partly of clay. As you looked, a stone was cut out by no human hand, and it struck the image on its feet of iron and clay and broke them in pieces. Then the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, and the gold all together were broken in pieces and became like chaff of the summer threshing floors, and the wind carried them away, so that not a trace of them could be found. But the stone that struck the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. Now, this is one of the beauties of these visions and dreams in the first half of Daniel, and that is that the interpretation is given right there. You don't need to go to Newsweek or USA Today. The interpretation's right there. And a lot of my dispensational neighbors who claim to rightly divide the word of truth skip that, which is unfortunate. So, Daniel then interprets it. This is the dream. Now, we will tell the king its interpretation. You, O king, the King of kings, to whom the God of heaven has given the kingdom, the power and the might and the glory, and into whose hand he has given, wherever they dwell, the children of man, the beasts of the field, and the birds of the heavens, making you rule over them all. What's he doing here? He's making Donald Trump feel really good about himself. Oh, did I? King Nebi is the quintessential narcissist. He lives and breathes and feeds on adulation, adoration. So Daniel lets him have it. Isn't that amazing? Think about how we deal with politicians and the like. Then he adds the coup de grace. You are the head of gold. Can you sense how King Nebi feels about this? I'm the head of gold. Yeah. But another kingdom inferior to you, inferior, shall arise after you. We know it's Medo-Persia. And yet a third kingdom of bronze, which shall rule over the earth. And there shall be a fourth kingdom, strong as iron, because iron breaks to pieces and shatters all things. And like iron that crushes, it shall break and crush all these. And as you saw the feet and toes, partly of potter's clay and partly of iron, it shall be a divided kingdom. But some of the firmness of iron shall be in it, just as you saw iron mixed with the soft clay. And as the toes of the feet were partly iron and partly clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly brittle. As you saw the iron mixed with soft clay, so they will mix with one another in marriage, but they shall not hold together, just as iron does not mix with clay. We've certainly seen that fulfilled, haven't we? Yeah. But then he goes on. In the days of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that shall never be destroyed, nor the kingdom be left to another people. It shall break in pieces all these kingdoms and bring them to an end, and it shall stand forever. And just as you saw that a stone was cut from a mountain by no human hand, that it broke in pieces the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, and the gold. Notice he puts King Nebi last. Just as you saw that a stone was cut from a mountain by no human hand, and that it broke in pieces the iron, etc. A great God has made known to you, the king, what shall be after this. The dream is certain, and its interpretation is sure. Then King Nebuchadnezzar fell upon his face and paid homage to Daniel. King Nebi is worshiping Daniel and commanded that an offering and incense be offered up to him. Can you picture an altar set up in front of Daniel? The king answered and said to Daniel, truly, your God is God of gods and Lord of kings and a revealer of mysteries, for you have been able to reveal this mystery. Then the king gave Daniel high honors and many great gifts and made him ruler over the whole province of Babylon and chief prefect over all the wise men of Babylon. So now Daniel's in charge of all of those psychics. Daniel made a request of the king, and he appointed Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego over the affairs of the province of Babylon, but Daniel remained in the king's court. Now I want to go to page 24. I point out that the letter A there on page 24, the primary function of this narrative is to unmask the futility of consulting psychics for information about the future. And I have definitions of these. The magicians, Khartoumim. This is actually an Egyptian loanword referring to a reciting or chanting priest. This suggests that Nebuchadnezzar had imported some of these from Egypt into his court. He had Egyptian soothsayers, magicians. The chief reciting priest is not only a scholarly scribe, but also the leader of the rituals. It's the task of these people to direct the rituals of all of the festivals of Babylon. In consequence of his familiarity with sacred documents, he is an expert in magic and healing. In the popular mind, these arts naturally stood in the foreground. As early as the Old Kingdom, the title chief reciting priest became an additional title of other officials, including those of lower rank. The word was probably also borrowed into Hebrew as a much degraded term. Then you have the enchanters. These are conjurers, ashafim. These people talk to the dead, they're necromancers. In some translations, these are also astrologers. They're out there watching the stars and keeping track of births and omens, etc. Then you have the sorcerers, kashfim, practicing magic. Usually appears with other terms, denoting various forms of magic and divination. Divination includes examining the configuration of the lumps, bumps, and humps in sheep livers. Then you have the Chaldeans, Chasdim. They were the learned class skilled in interpretations. Go to the next page. I've got a clay tablet pictured there. This is from Babylon. It's a model of a sheep's liver out of clay, and it's fired. They actually used this in King Nebi's university to teach people how to understand the lumps, bumps, and humps. If you look closely, you'll see cuneiform writing around the holes and so on. Those are interpretive elements, what you're supposed to do when you see these kinds of things on a sheep's liver. And then based on that sheep's liver, they tried to get it as fresh as possible so it may still be quivering as they dug it out of a sheep. But they would examine it closely, and based on all their vast learning of sheep's livers, they would begin to interpret what was likely to happen next. What Daniel describes here is real, not the divination, not the necromancy, but what they were doing was happening in his very witness presence. And the beauty of it is, and it brings up the word grace again, is that all of those psychics, their lives have been saved by Daniel. And I've already shared with you everything that's in this document. Do you have any questions? It is now straight up 7 o'clock. Yeah, Mercy.
Difficulty wrapping my head around the fact that these kids were like just 13, 14 when they were,
Yes, he was more like 17, 18 now.
so about, 16, 17, 18 when they were
When they graduated.
given responsibility for.
Yes. Tells you how good they were, doesn't it?
So young.
Yes, we know that the hostages, typical hostage taking, involved taking children, early teens. We know that from clay tablets, thousands of them, from the libraries of Babylon and Ashur and Akkad and Nuzi and Ur. And we're still finding, if you want a PhD project, go to the British Museum, go to their basement, and you'll find these big bins full of clay tablets that have not yet been translated.
And isn't it true that the Jewish today, I don't know if they did then, believe that once you have your bar mitzvah at 13 years old, you're a man?
Yes.
So,
So from the Jewish perspective, he probably, Daniel and his friends had already had their bar mitzvahs. They could fill out a minyan in a synagogue. They could join the elders and make very important decisions. Which raises an interesting question. We usually baptize our children at what age? 10 to 12. Do we then allow them to participate in board meetings? Why not?
They're not ready.
How do you know they're not ready?
We decided they weren't ready.
oh, okay.
I know that sounds radical, but I, in my ministry, incorporated our young people constantly in the decision-making process of the congregation. And it was two reasons. One, it helped them to claim the congregation as their own. It also taught them what it meant to be a leader. And another benefit that I always saw, it let them know how important they were to the future of the congregation. Want to try it?
We need young people to try it with.
Ah,
Minor detail, I know.
yes. So, until next time. Any other questions about this? Anything interesting? Yes, ma'am.
I just want to say, I don't know what their life expectancy was, but I'm assuming it was 30, 40 years old. I don't know. I'm guessing.
Well, we know,
I'm thinking that if they're 17 or 18, that's equivalent to our, I don't know, 25, 35? I'm just throwing it out there because that's what I think.
yeah. Did you notice anywhere in these notes how long Daniel had been serving in Babylon? Given the chronology dates that are given there, he served Nebuchadnezzar, his sons, he served Nabonidus and Belshazzar, and Cyrus and Darius the first, which totals out to around 70 years. And we know that Nebuchadnezzar was king for 62. You didn't think so. Well, stop and think about it. In the sweep of history, you got the pre-flood people that were living centuries. Then after the flood, they tailed off, but not much. I mean, Moses, how long did he live? 120. Abraham, how long did he live?
180 or
180, yeah. So don't be surprised. We do know archaeologists have found skeletons of peoples whose teeth had ground down to the gums. How long does it take to grind teeth down to the gums? Just something to think about. Okay. See you Sabbath. You had a question?
Did the sheep have a special significance as sort of a god to the Babylonians, that they would use its liver over another?
A question, you didn't speak to the lady in the back here.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear it.
She didn't either. He's asking if the sheep in particular have significance. We know that there are two animals tracing back through sacrificial systems which were significant. One was sheep and the other were pigs. Goats were included among the sheep. They didn't differentiate much between goats and sheep. So we know that their significance in society goes way, 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 way back. So I can't resist this. My mom used to do this. She'd sit there in camp meeting with knitting needles listening to HMS Richards. I don't know how many clothes I had through the years that the result of HMS Richards. Well, I think it's cool. It's wonderful. Don't let me stop you in any way. All right, let's close with prayer, and we'll meet again Sabbath and next week. Father, all glory to you. You are God of all gods. In fact, there are no other gods, period. You are King and Lord, high and lifted up. Your Son shares your throne. The Holy Spirit, your very nature emanates from your throne. Three great persons. Father, thank you for preserving this for us. Thank you for giving us an outline of our present. And thank you for the promise to keep us tightly gripped in the glory of your grace. Thank you for this in Jesus' name. Amen.